This Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity dropped yesterday, right after we started the show, or I should say, right before. I'm sorry. And so we really didn't have a chance to read the ruling, get a sense of how other people interpreted it, and it's worse than. I think it's worse than anyone I was reading beforehand or spoke to beforehand thought it could be.
Well, because they had already delivered the win that Trump needed, which was to delay this. And we thought, there's no way they're going to, go as far as to make some determinations about this case. They gave him what he needed, and oh boy, did they. Yeah, they really did. I mean, in the sort of classic fashion of this court, also just left the door wide open. And we'll talk more with Ian Millhiser about this. But also, we should also say that it's really hard to absorb what the Supreme Court has done in less than about 2 weeks' time to our government as we know it. One is sort of a schoolhouse rock assault, if you will, in terms of this presidential immunity. The other is a far less sexy and obvious thing to lay people, but the demise of the Chevron doctrine and a couple of other cases that sort of reinforce this idea that our government really is seriously debilitated and limited in terms of what it can do to protect citizens, the environment, our food, our investments. I mean, the list goes on and on. Any of the functioning that we take for granted, and by take for granted, I mean not even aware of on a daily basis that impact us, has been impacted by this. And it is open season for corporations in the same way, in the way that it seems to be open season for Donald Trump. And I say Donald Trump because Joe Biden came out last night, gave a 5-minute speech, made it all the way through. And literally, I mean, I can sum it up with this. And well, here, let's play this. We'll play this clip later. But because I want to get to these other ones just to set up Ian. But he basically just said, what the Supreme Court did was horrible. And I'm going to show you that I am above that by not doing anything in response. How brave.
Institution.
I mean, there is a disease. And I don't know if it's an ideological one or if it's a generational one.
Seems terminal.
But we saw it with a guy like Breyer, too. Do you remember Breyer before he quit? And he was like, if I quit now, it'll look like it was a political thing to do. And I would never besmirch the court in that way. And that's basically what Joe Biden did last night. It's don't worry. I'm not going to abuse my office. And I hope this example is learned by Donald Trump and other people.
And it's odd because when you look at public polling about the Supreme Court, the Democrats could have a real opportunity to actually go with where the public is on this. But we have an octogenarian class that's ruling the party.
Can't press advantage to save the world, basically.
Basically.
I mean, in some ways, if Joe Biden's an institutionalist, he really should take advantage of what apparently the Supreme Court, the other institution, says about his institution, and he should go on a more or less a crime spree.
He should, to the Democrats' advantage, but the Democrats are the Democrats.
I hope somebody says to James Comer, hey, buddy, your case just fell apart, particularly if he was in office. Because if he was getting paid by the Chinese and he was president, well...
Official act, baby.
Whatever he was doing. But let's just take this series of clips for a moment so that people can understand just how radical this ruling is relative to the baseline set by John Roberts, Sam Alito, and Brett Kavanaugh.
And two of these people, by the way, are Bush appointees, or at least, I forget what, two of them are Bush appointees.
George W. Bush.
Yeah, and so I just want to point out that if you're hearing from people that this is in some way a Trump phenomenon in the Republican Party, understand that this goes back much further.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the unitary executive theory was essentially born in the Nixon administration with Cheney as chief of staff and Pat Buchanan. What Trump did was put the Republicans in a position where they could do this. This is not a 5-4 decision. In other words, when the court is split 5-4, even if they can essentially pass, as it were, a perspective on the law with 5 votes over 4, they're far more hesitant to do it than when it's 6-3.
Yep.
Because there's just this cover. There's a big difference between 6-3 and 5-4.
And that's why the death of RBG was so massive, because Amy Coney Barrett became that 6th person.
Exactly. Here is John Roberts back in 2005 being questioned by Patrick Leahy in Roberts' confirmation hearing.
Senator, I believe that no one is above the law under our system, and that includes the president. The president is fully bound by the law, the Constitution, and statutes. Now, there often arise issues where there's a conflict between the legislature and the executive over an exercise of executive authority, asserted executive authority. The framework for analyzing that is in the Youngstown sheet and tube case.
Okay, there you go. No one's above the law. Now here is Sam Alito also being questioned by Patrick Leahy. He was the former chair of the Judiciary Committee at that time. I don't know if he was the chair, actually, but he was certainly the ranking leader of the Democrats at that time. Here is Sam Alito.
I don't think the president is above the law. No person in this country, no matter how high or powerful, is above the law. It has been a particular honor for me to serve on the Court of Appeals for these past 15 years, because it has given me the opportunity to use whatever talent I have to serve my country by upholding the rule of law. And there is nothing that is more important for our republic than the rule of law. No person in this country, no matter how high or powerful, is above the law, and no person in this country is beneath the law. 15 years ago, when I was sworn in as a judge of the Court of Appeals, I took an oath. I put my hand on the Bible, and I swore that I would administer justice without respect to persons, that I would do equal right to the poor and to the rich, and that I would carry out my duties under the Constitution and the laws of the United States. I don't think
Now, to be fair to Sam Alito, that was before a writer in the Washington Post had, critiqued something that his wife wore. So,
And won a Pulitzer for it, apparently. Just that criticism. Martha Ann thinks she was responsible for that Pulitzer.
And no one could have seen at that time the ubiquitousness of a pride flag, to be fair. And of course, that will, change anybody's perspective on whether the president is above the law. Here's Brett Kavanaugh. Also, one of the most explicit liars in the history of confirmation hearings, right?
Poorly composed.
Regardless of what you think about the accusations against him, when he told that lie about what was written in the yearbook, there wasn't a single human being in that entire hearing who didn't know he's lying. Not a single human being in that courtroom, including his wife, including like
Lindsey Graham, who was foaming at the mouth.
literally every single person just watched him lie. And so they had no idea of what he looks like when he was lying. And this, incidentally, apparently is also what he looks like when he was lying. This is Brett Kavanaugh being questioned by Dick Durbin, who I believe at that time was the chair of the committee.
No
Minority.
one's above the law in the United States. That's a foundational principle that I've talked about, coming from Federalist 69, coming from the structure of the Constitution. We're all equal before the law in the United States of America. The foundation of our Constitution was that, as Hamilton explained in Federalist 69, the presidency would not be a monarchy, and it specified all the ways that under the Constitution, the president is not above the law. No one is above the law in the United States of America. The Constitution is not above the law. No one's above the law in the United States. Secondly, the president serves a term in office, not an unlimited term in office, again specified in Federalist 69. The president is subject to the laws. No one's above the law in the United States, including the President of the United States. And that's something that is made clear in Federalist 69. Even in the national security.
How many times do we need to hear him say that? Apparently, when all three of these men gave this testimony, there was an asterisk. But apparently they were holding it in their hand underneath the table in which they were testifying in front of.
Yeah, no one is above the law yet.
They were doing that
Exactly.
fingers crossed thing behind your back, right? When you're telling a white lie to your parents or something like that, you got to cover your bases.
I'm just describing how it is, not how it should be.
No one is above the law. That is until we get to 6-3.
Yeah,
and then I gotta say,
Until
Senator-
2024, baby.
I'm sorry. Did I say that out publicly?
And I do like how they go back. They go back in history, or their Kavanaugh does as well, because under this ruling, the Nixon tapes would not have been admissible, and that would have constituted an official act. So Nixon is in hell, but while he's there, now he can have the comfort of knowing if he were president at this time, he would have been able to totally get away with it thanks to this court.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.